Welcome on in, everybody, to the Postgame pod here on Auburn Undercover. Nathan King, joined by Jason Caldwell. Auburn gets a 31-15 win over South Alabama today on homecoming. And Jason, we were talking about it before we got rolling. Kind of went exactly the way that a lot of us expected it to go. Auburn could have played better in a lot of areas. That's not necessarily excusing that. But we had said all week that 24.5 felt like a really big number against a quality South Alabama team. But I think the biggest thing you come away with in this game, looking ahead to Oklahoma, that has a very potent quarterback, a good offense, and Hugh Freeze talked about it after the game, not playing up to that standard on the defensive side of the ball. You held them to 15 points. That is the good thing. But what happened between the 20s, I think, is going to be a little bit frustrating. And they're going to have some, moments in the defensive film study this week where they're going to need to address those things.
Yeah, and, you win a couple of games, and I think fans go, okay, well, now it's going to be 50-0. It's just not reality. This is a work in progress. Defensively, it's a work in progress. The thing I was surprised with the most is we saw a lot of young guys early. Oh, yeah. We saw Bryce Diaz early. We saw Eric Winters early. We saw a bunch of those guys on the field early. They played a bunch of them, and so from the get-go, it looked like this was a plan to, okay, let's back off a little bit. They didn't show a ton of pressure. They did at times, but first. We talked about it like Baylor to begin with. I'm going to say the same thing. South Alabama's got a really good offense. They're going to score points against folks. That was a challenge when you're talking about that defensively because they're going to spread the field and give you a bunch of different looks, and they did that. Should Auburn play better? Absolutely. I think they'll be the first to tell you that. But you look at it in the end and go 3-0. That's after the last, I won't say 2 seasons, after the last 4 or 5 seasons for Auburn. You're up on the scoreboard when you leave. Yes. You take it and go. And so I think that's the key right now. Look, just find a way to win, see if you can get better, improve in some areas, and fix it and try to fix some things for next week. To me, that's the biggest thing. Yes, you need to get better. But I think, hey, look, take wins right now, see if you can stack some together.
Yeah, and a necessary caveat for this game, I think particularly when you talk about defense. This was one where, we've been monitoring some injuries here and there. This is one where significant amount of injuries that had impact at a lot of different places. You still don't have Champ Anthony. Him, Damari Alston, and Malcolm Simmons, Hugh Freeze talked about, could have played, but they just decided not to. Rayshon Pleasant on defense, that's another guy. That's a backup cornerback. Then you lose your starting cornerback, Jay Crawford, during the game.
Yep.
You lose Amaris Williams during the game to a separated shoulder. They were able to pop that back in. And then on the offensive side of the ball, I don't think this really had much of an impact because he had already done what he needed to do, but Eric Singleton had a hit pointer in the second half. And so you're missing a few key guys here and there, but I agree with you, Jason. It's really interesting to see. Hugh Freeze said 13 true freshmen played on defense, and to their credit, when they made that big stop and got that turnover, obviously it was Jared Smith who did it. It's not like they said, this game's kind of close. It's the fourth quarter. Let's get them back. No, they kept those guys on the field, and credit to them.
Yeah, and look, they had, Keldrick Falk was out there with Jared some, and so they mixed some guys in. But you saw, Anquan Fagans and Eric Winters both on the field at the same time. We saw Blake Woodby in the game in some key situations at corner, and even though he's been a nickel at times. And so, yes, they rolled some of those guys out there. Didn't see a whole lot of Robert Woodyard today. Saw a little bit of Xavier Atkins, a little bit of DeMarcus Riddick, but we saw a lot of Elijah Melendez in there, a lot of Bryce Diaz for the first time. And so, they rolled a bunch of different guys on defense. Got to improve, got to get crisper. And obviously the periphery of the defense, where you're talking about the flats, secondary, and then the middle, that's where you're going to have to get better, obviously, when you get Oklahoma coming up and John here.
Yeah, and then, I think the main thing is Auburn would, point to things that have popped up a few times over the first few games. That's what would be the most frustrating thing. Talking about not getting off field on 3rd and long, talking about penalties that extend drives, and then missed tackles. There weren't as many in this game as maybe Baylor, but there were still a few moments. I think that's why DJ Durkin got the sideline warning. He was so fired up after the missed tackles.
I thought there were a couple of, I won't say terrible, but I thought there were really questionable penalties in there. The one they called on Anquan Fagans, and he was running. I thought it had to be Sylvester Smith if it was anybody. And then I thought Kinsley Faustin got called on one that I thought was terrible because I thought he turned and went for the ball. But again, you got to, and I said you got to create more pressure. I thought the front wasn't as dominant today as they've been even the first couple of games. And I think South Alabama's credit, they kept him off balance and did some things.
I was going to say, difficult team to do that against. It kind of felt like if South Alabama didn't get much going on first down, they really weren't going to do much of anything. When they established that balance, like Auburn does on offense, they're difficult to slow down. And on the flip side there, talking about Auburn's day offensively, I mean, Hugh Freeze talked about it postgame, like it couldn't, the fact that they didn't have many possessions, I'm not saying it couldn't have been much better, because it obviously could have been, but there were a lot of really good moments for that group. When you have an 8.5-minute drive in the second half, that's going to lower your potential points. And in fact, you only get a field goal at the end of it. But look, I thought Jackson Arnold did what he needed to do today. Very effective with his legs in the red zone. Converted 2 4th-and-1s with his legs. Jeremiah Cobb goes for over 100 yards. He spread the ball around. Are there things to work on? Sure, but I thought it was a pretty solid group, a pretty solid day for that group as well.
Yeah, and the numbers passing-wise won't look great, but there were a couple of drops that probably cost you 30 yards and a couple of possessions, conversions. We hadn't seen Horatio Fields drop a pass maybe this entire camp, and he has one right in his hand. It's probably going to be a 15-yard gain and move the change. I thought early on, the fourth down play, Eric Singleton was a big deal. Just to convert one like that, Eric Singleton did a great job in the middle of the field. Got Cam Coleman on the deep ball a little bit. Jeremiah Cobb was good. To me, the star of the day was the offensive line. I thought it was their best performance so far this year, and they continue to take some steps. Much better pass protection. I thought it was a good day for them.
Yeah, I mean, you could say, South Alabama's not, and we talked about it, they'd probably be overmatched on the defensive front, but Ball State's not very good on the defensive front, and Auburn in that game didn't do a good job pass protecting. Yeah, I found myself kind of up there, like occasionally Arnold would drop back, and I was like, that's pretty good pass protection. They did a better job of that this week. Now it cranks up, Jason, going into week 4 at Oklahoma. Defense will be a big focus. Jackson Arnold will be a big focus. He already got to
a lot of storylines
being asked about it on the post-game podium, but there will be no shortage of storylines as Auburn heads to Norman. And I think the biggest thing, you talked about it, Jason, and Hugh Freeze said it post-game. You can look at all the external factors, but the fact that this team is sitting at 3-0 going into SEC play is exactly what you wanted, especially with a part of the schedule, not these last 2 games, but a part of the schedule we knew was going to be more difficult. And now, in these next 2 games in particular, before your bye week, before you get a big anticipated night game against Georgia, what can you do in these next 2 games?
Yeah, no, that's it. And like I said, you got things to work on. Obviously, trying to get healthy. That injury situation will be the biggest thing to maybe monitor this week as you get ready to go back on the road. I think for Auburn, you've had a road game under your belt, which is a big deal. I think that's important. Now, obviously, get ready for probably the best team you faced all along. I mean, Baylor's offense is really good. Oklahoma might be similar, but Oklahoma's defense is going to be much better than Baylor's was. So for Auburn, it's going to be a challenge coming up on the road. Yeah,
Oklahoma's defense, I think, is a tremendous step forward from anything they've seen so far through these first 3 games, and so it should be interesting. It'll be obviously exciting as Auburn gets set to begin SEC play. They'll be ranked, they'll be undefeated. It'll be a ranked-on-ranked matchup. Everything you could want in week 4 at Oklahoma. Today at Jordan-Hare Stadium, Auburn wins 31-15 over South Alabama. For Jason Caldwell, I'm Nathan King. Keep it locked at AuburnUndercover.com. We'll have all sorts of coverage for y'all the rest of the day, Saturday, and into Sunday. We'll check you guys later.